Jason, we talked last week that I'm interested to see how the running backs are going to be used, not just in regards to carry distribution, but how they're used. And, the one thing that is not readily uh, available in regards to the coach's evaluation going into the first game is who's going to be a liability versus a benefit in pass protection. And then obviously, we can readily see uh, running and catching, but that's certainly a component that is going to factor in as well. So going through the 3 to 4 running backs that you believe are going to play, how do you think that distribution plays out throughout the season and then converts to stats?
Yeah, so if you look at the depth chart, if you take that into consideration, you've got your first two running backs are pretty clear, Eric Gray and Marcus Major, and then you've got Tawee Walker and Javonte Barnes listed as the third and fourth backs. So I mean, I think you've got good balance that you'll have in place between those four, and I think in terms of yardage, it's really kind of tough to define. I think when you look at Eric Gray, I think combined total yards is going to be big for him. I could see him in the neighborhood of 700-800 yards rushing, and then somewhere in the neighborhood of 350 to 400 yards receiving. I think he did have 23 catches last year. I think you could see him upwards of 35 to 40 catches out of the backfield this year, because I know they really want to get him out in space as much as they possibly can. But I think you've got a lot of these kids that are going to play very specific roles. I think Tawee Walker's a guy that's probably a short yardage goal line back. More so, you think in the mold of a Trey Sermon, who really was a guy that really was used a lot in fourth quarters of games to, big, strong kid that was really, really tough to tackle. And so I could, lay into some of the defenses that were a little bit, more fatigued. I wouldn't be surprised to see, honestly, to see Marcus Major lead this team in rushing. He's more of a kind of between the tackles, prototypical running back. So I could see Marcus Major somewhere in the 900 to maybe even 1,000-yard range. And Mark, I think the big wild card in this whole thing is Javonte Barnes. I think he has the talent and he has the ability to possibly be the best pure running back on this team. But to your point that you made before, he is a true freshman. How does he pass protect? How does he do the little things that Levy's going to ask him to do? And so that's the one thing that's a little bit of a unknown. I think you could see him be a guy that mid-year be a guy that maybe even gets more carries than Eric Gray. Out of the backfield. But I would, as we talked about with the way that Levy runs this offense, I could see, a situation where Eric Gray gets about 12 to 15 carries a game, very similar to Marcus Major. And then you've got maybe 10 to 15 carries that you split between Javonte Barnes and Tawee Walker, depending on how things go. I think you've got a unit here, Mark, that will be, kind of one of those things, which happens a lot, where you see whoever has the hot hand gets more carries. So I think you've got an upward trajectory for Javonte Barnes that maybe is a little bit higher than some of the other ones. But I think just seeing how he reacts to his first major college football game and through the early part of the season as well will be dependent on how much he can really help this team from a carry perspective.